Hello and welcome back to El Partido, yet another Spanish football podcast. But as always, with nostalgia. And you cannot get much more nostalgic when we think about some of the football shirts that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 decades. They are sometimes and rightly often referred to as works of art. Would you agree, Paul?
Absolutely. It's been tough, actually. You know, we did the Kelme shirt one a few weeks back, actually, wasn't it? Maybe a couple of months ago now, and it was always hard for us there to really sort of pick our favourites. There was a lot to to cut through, and certainly ahead of today or tonight's episode, I found it quite hard as well to whittle it down to just a select few, because there's such an array of beautiful shirts in the wonderful history of Spanish football.
There really is, and you think of the plethora of Nike shirts and Adidas shirts and Puma shirts, but Spain's such a tapestry of brands, as we've mentioned, Kelme there. You know, there's some more off-piece stuff like Astore and a couple of the other ones as well, like Hummel obviously being quite big at the moment. Macron are very much in the vibe. And I think that's what's kind of given us the inspiration for this episode, because we've been watching the football kits being released for La Liga and La Liga 2 sides, and also, Primera F sides as well so far this season. And this is a stunning collection of football kits coming out so far. I don't know if you've got a favourite from this summer, Paul.
Well, there's probably two that stand out for me. One of them, perhaps rather predictably, is the Real Mallorca kits this year. I think both the home and away, with the sort of the throwback stripe down the middle. It looks a bit like a Go Faster stripe, really. Harks back to the about 20 years ago with the European expedition that the club went on. But the home shirt, red with the black stripe down the middle, I think is beautiful. But one with a collar on is the Real Oviedo shirt. I just think the stunning blue with the gold on it. I think that's very, very nice.
Really, really smart, isn't it? Yeah, I think if there was to pick the two that I'm really enjoying at the moment, first of all, props to any club wearing yellow in Spain this season, because you are just doing it right. The only one I maybe would have a bit of criticism for is potentially Las Palmas for letting the side down, but I think that's a generic Hummel complaint I have this season. But I look at the Kappa kit for Alcorcón, absolutely sensational, sort of like a crisp golden yellow with the deep navy blue is just incredible, and the high badging of true Kappa style is just brilliant. But one with the collar for me has got to be Osasuna's home shirt this season, which is a throwback to their first ever European campaign. And they actually went to Glasgow to shoot a lot of the promo material for it. So they do a lot of stuff inside Ibrox, the home of Rangers. But they also do a lot of stuff, in and around like the West End and Finnieston and places like that. And just this idea that there's a couple of Spanish models with an Osasuna shirt on outside a takeaway that says home delivery on it. I was like, that's just brilliant. That's just great.
Yeah, it is. And it is a gorgeous shirt, that Osasuna one. And one you mentioned just before we started recording, the Celta Vigo shirt as well. It's another Hummel one, isn't it? Which reminds me of the old, was it an Umbro one? From probably about 20 odd years ago as well now. It's got the tiny dashes of red just on the shoulder pieces there, or just on the collarbone. Just reminds me of that. Similar to, it was Umbro, because at the same time, England had a Umbro kit that was sort of the same template but a different coloured pattern.
Yeah.
And had the, on the collarbone.
On the shoulders there, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, really smart. And like you say, they seem to be absolutely smashing it. And, as per usual, the two that let us down are Real Madrid and Barcelona. But I think with them, to be fair to them, they can't deviate too far away from the classic I'm using here. Real Madrid has got to be, black and white, all white. And Barcelona have got to have, that red and blue in a bit of an ish. But again, I wasn't too impressed with either of those kits this season. So we'll stick to the Celta Vigos. We'll stick to the Real Betis as well. That's a really classic too. And like I say, much love for the Osasunas and co of this world. But this is too modern, this chat, Paul. I'm getting a nosebleed from being too close to the present when we're talking on this podcast. The inspiration we've got is obviously from the kits we've seen coming out this summer in the Liga. But actually, this episode, we want to focus back on some of our favourite kits from across the years. However, there is one caveat, and I'm kind of wearing the clue for it right now. It's got to have a collar. So I suppose I'll ask you for the first time, what are your thoughts on collars? Are you a lover? Are you a hater? Are you collar agnostic? Thoughts?
I think I actually tend to like more shirts with collars than dislike, but a collar's got to be done right, hasn't it? It's quite easy to get it wrong, but it seems to be that certainly in the majority of cases of Spanish football that we've seen probably for the last 20-30 years, I'd say that manufacturers have pretty much got it right in 90 to 99% of the time, and hopefully some of the kits that you and I have picked out tonight are ones that people agree with us on. But equally, I'm more than happy to be told, actually, you've missed the mark with this one. There's a better one that should have got a mention. So feel free to get in touch with us and tell us if we've missed any, or send us a picture of your favourite.
Absolutely. I think today I mentioned to a few people, sort of like hinting of what we'll be talking about, and they said, "Oh, have you done this one?" And I've gone, "No." And they were like, "Oh, well, you missed out there, then haven't you? Like, how could you not do such and such a shirt, such and such a shirt?" So yeah, but these are, again, this podcast is a reflection on us, and that's the way it should be. So yeah. I suppose in the spirit of things, Paul, as I made you very late this evening recording this podcast, so as a courtesy and as an apology, I'll let you go first if you want to bring up your first of your 5 picks for kits with collars.
Yeah, sure. I will just say as well that I found it really quite difficult to narrow it down to just a handful of shirts for this. Like even as late as this afternoon, I was saying to you, I've got these 4 definitely, and I'm just trying to narrow it down for a 5th. So actually, the ones that I'm going to mention, they're not in any particular order of favoritism before anybody decides to shout me down for ranking them in a particular order for top 5. But the first one I'm going to mention, and I'm mentioning this one first because over your shoulder you've got if it's the one, I think it's the one that I'm going to talk about, or one of the ones from the era. It is an Atletico Madrid shirt from 1995-1996 with the Marbella sponsor, which I can see for those on YouTube as well is over your shoulder. Puma, that's it, yeah, with a nice red with a blue sort of trim through the collar. I just think it looks really cool. Very 90s actually. But it's also like, I mean, it's a kit that I think Simeone wore with, was it number 14? I think he had on his back. Obviously, I don't know if people know this, but I'm sure they do. Particularly Atleti fans, and will already know this. But obviously, Marbella is a destination in Spain, isn't it? But the reason they've got a sponsor from the Costa del Sol resort city on the front of their shirts was essentially, it was linked to the real estates owned by the then club president Jesus Gil, who is a character, to keep it neutral, and I'm sure he's somebody who at some point we may talk about him in various different stories as as the episodes fly by. But yeah, I just think it's a great kit. It's mid-90s, and I think the mid-90s was pretty good across Europe for football kits. It's certainly in Italy and Spain and some of the English football clubs had great kits. Iconic moments, I'd say, Atletico Madrid, Copa del Rey, good league run as well. Was it Antic? Radomir Antic was the head coach, I think, at the time, wasn't it? High energy football. Like I say, Simeone, Antic, Juan Esneda, who we actually mentioned, didn't we? Was it last week before? When Liam was on the Zaragoza episode. I just think it's a great kit. Nice boldness between the colours as well. As anybody who's watching can see over Nick's shoulder, the good contrast between the crisp white and the I don't know what type of red you'd call that, but it's a very rich red, isn't it? And it's that style of football kit that in the stitching, there's also the pattern that's sort of woven into how it's threaded together, which you don't get anymore, do you? But it used to be in all of the old kits, and you never really see it anymore now. I just think it's a really cool kit. I've wanged on about that kit for long enough now. I should I'll let you have some input.
No, I agree with you completely, and I think it was this sort of era as we were coming into where we were very very much moving away from the we'd moved away from the cotton shirt, but we were still quite plain for long periods of time, and this is when fashion really hit football shirts for me in that mid-90s period. And it wasn't just a functional shirt anymore. It did have its functions, and they were getting clever in terms of making them breathable, making them lightweight, making them absorbent. That sounds horrible, but they were. But they became stylish, and obviously it's come back around now with the culture that we have, and certainly with this one, with the Atleti shirt with the Marbella on. It was iconic because this was a time when Atleti were starting to in a way flex a little bit. Some of the successes that they had during the 90s and the way they looked, the way they were doing it was brilliant. And for me, I'm glad we started with the Atleti shirt, because if I was to have a quintessential side who you would say is dominated by the collar, it is Atleti. And I think that is, unfortunately, with the modern incarnation, something we've lost. Think about all the players that made their debuts, during this 90s and early noughties that wore the Atleti shirt, that had just various different colour sizes, patterned collars, things like that. I always hark back to Fernando Torres as a kid making his debut at 17 with a shirt that was clearly 2 sizes too big for him, and this giant Harry Hill-esque type collar.
Yeah.
And I think they just go hand in hand, don't they? It's just,
Yeah, and you know what? On that point, actually, it's a good observation, actually. With Atleti, there is definitely a synonymity with collars or a uniqueness with them. Because if I think back now to some of the standout trophy wins in Atleti's history, particularly the recent history or semi-recent history, it's been when they've had a collar on the shirt. So if you think when they won the league during the COVID season, they had it was a short collar, but it was a collar with the dark blue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Europa League win, they had the big white collar. I've got the picture or the image of Forlan and Aguero where they've got that big white collar on the shirt, and when they're celebrating. And I think as well with the Falcao when they had him, who was it they beat? That was another Europa League, wasn't it?
It was
when they beat Athletic Club.
And they had the Kia on the front of the logo, didn't they? If I remember rightly, so
that was another collar. So I've got no science or statistics to back it up, but certainly when Atleti have a good collar on the shirt, they seem to win. Again, no basis to that. It's not scientifically proven, but it just feels right as a fact. It
sounds like science to me. I feel like we've cottoned on something here that we maybe need to get in touch with them right now and say, right, your kit for this season looks all right, but just get a collar stitched on now, and you might even top.
Don't worry too much about signings and tactics. Success will come if you've got a good collar on your shirt.
Yeah. who needs Alex Baena when you can just add a collar to a shirt? It'd be much more cost effective that way rather than spending 30 million euros on a player. So yeah, I think, like you say, especially that the shirt behind me and in iterations of with the Marbella logo on there. There was another club as well that had it was Sevilla, wasn't it? They also had Marbella on their shirt for a little while.
Yes, they did for a while. Yeah,
Umbro kit with a really nice collar as well.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as well. There was a time when Mallorca had another city's name across the chest for sponsorship reasons. I'm right. Malaga had Malaga at one point. Was that the city council deal?
Yeah, Malaga have still got Malaga written across it. And that was my big complaint about their kit this season is they've done the Malaga in the style of the city council's font. I'm just like, there's a quick win there. Just do it in like the 1997, 1998 style, and you'd sell millions of them every time. So yeah, no, I think Atleti's shirts or and any Atleti shirt with a collar is definitely worth of note. Another side who I absolutely love wearing a collar that does collars really, really well, and I think it harks back to their focus on tradition more than anything is Real Sociedad. You look at maybe some recent years where they've had classic shirts. They had the painted stripe Macron shirt with the really dark navy collar that was stunning. Even last season when they've had like the old style
with the
drawstring-esque one. But the kit that really stands out for me, and the collar's actually quite plain, but it's the collar, cuff, nape of the neck combo that gets it for me, and that is the 1995 to 1997, and there's similar versions of going into 1998, 1999. Real Sociedad Astorre kit where they've got the Astor logo going down the sleeves as well, and then just a really quite nice collar with proper bold, not too big stripes going down the middle of it. Craft Auto in the biggest bloody sponsor that you'll ever see. But it's just such a stunning kit. And like I say, around this point for Real Sociedad, you couldn't really tell the difference between a lot of the home shirts other than the sponsors, because they had Bancor on the sponsor of the season before, same kit. But I just think with this Craft Auto, it just looks 10 times better. Yeah,
and this is a time as well where like the logos were massive, really, weren't they? And standoutish, but around it, like in fact, let me. So I'm just refreshing my memory to make sure I'm recalling this right. In between the stripe, there was a blank spot for the club logo and the and the Astor logo once it, so the stripe stopped, and I like that. That's a good choice kit, that, and it's got as well. It's that shape of that typical like 90s shape where it's kind of the sleeves are supposed to be short sleeves, but they're like
massive.
Wide. Massive.
With huge cuffs in them, and it wasn't. Again, we could pick up kits for many reasons for them being iconic or synonymous with success, but this was a time when Real Sociedad were just doing what Real Sociedad did, and that was compete in La Liga. I think this season they finished 5th or 6th, if I remember rightly, in 1995, 1996. They just looked great whilst being part of the project, so to speak. And for me, it's a really neat shirt. I think one of the things I also noted about it as well was it's one of the first times that I've seen a shirt get tagged. And what I mean by that is, if any of you at home have got like a Nike shirt from the turn of, 2010 to 2011 to 2014, something like that, it has like a bit of a Nike logo tag on it.
Oh,
which you never really used to see down at the bottom. Yeah. And I've looked through loads of little kits as well at the time, and this has got like a little tag on the bottom which has got the Real Sociedad logo badge on it. It's got information about the season. It's got obviously the kit maker's logo, but then again there's another one about halfway up the shirt as well, which I never fully understand. Like I say, I don't own this shirt, unfortunately. I've kept my eye out for it, but it's the fact it's just got these little subtleties that I go, why is that there? you've got my interest as well. So I think, this Astor Real Sociedad shirt is just absolutely sensational. And if anyone is selling one, please hit me up on the number which will appear on your screen right now. It was you quite good. So so Real Sociedad I've got to mention there. Atleti I've got to mention in there. Where are we going to next, Paul?
For the sake of not wandering too far and to get it out of the way early, I have gone with a Real Madrid shirt, and it's one that I mentioned when we did the Kelme episode. It's the away kit from 1996. It's the purple Kelme one with is it Tekka, the sponsor was. So it's, thinking back, because I don't want to say the same things that I said a few weeks ago, but it's got the nice sponsor logo down the sleeves. It's got the nice collar. It's like a pattern of what would you call it? They're not stripes, but they're like stripe marks, I guess, markings across the front.
Sashes, aren't they?
Yeah, like sashes or slashes. Yeah, across the front. And it's one that I had when I was like 5 or 6. Not because I was a Real Madrid fan or anything like that. I just used to love shirts. When we went on holiday, I'd be lucky enough to get a shirt from most places that we went to, whatever the local team was. So I've still got a picture of me somewhere when I was about 6 wearing this shirt. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a time when they had Raúl, Fernando Hierro, Sucre, Roberto Carlos was there. Yeah, Capello was the manager, I think, or did he come at the end of that season? But yeah, it was quite a bold pattern, and yeah, I just think it's, in fact, yeah, Capello came at the end of the season. It was still Jorge Valdano that was the manager. It was the time when they finished 6th in the Liga, so they missed out in Europe as well. And if you think back to when we did the Galacticos episode, this is like just before the first Galactico era really started. So yeah, it's a favorite kit of mine, that one.
Yeah, it's really like, and it was bold. We kind of caveated the top of this episode, sort of criticizing the Real Madrid just all white kits, but when they can deviate from the so-called Los Blancos template, they can be quite lively, and again, it's important to remember how much of an important color that purple is to the club. It often gets forgotten in the marketing of things nowadays with the black and white, that actually that is one of their primary colors. At one point it was more important than the black, and I think it was a Florentino Perez decision to actually ease that out and make it sort of like an away kit color or a special kit color than have it out front and center. So it's really interesting at a time as well where we, as we said a few weeks ago, we make Kelme synonymous with the top clubs. They're not just sponsoring the odd club here and there. They were predominant across Spain as well, and having that connection with a club of Real Madrid stature was absolutely incredible as well. So yeah, that is a beautiful kit, and again, one I've been keeping my eye out for. I did think I found one the other week, but it turned out to be fake, which is a shame. Again,
it gets bonus points for me as well, and then we definitely did talk about this on the Kelme episode. It had the Kelme paw print logo going up the top and on the collar. It was just and you know what? If I saw it now for sale, a legit one, I would definitely have to find a way of purchasing it without my wife saying, "What are you buying another football shirt for?"
Without knowing.
Yeah. Because I just think it's quite iconic, and it's one that I think there's something about purple football shirts. If they're done right, they just, I don't know, I've got a bit of a thing for them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'd agree on that, and I know of somebody else who is also of the same persuasion as well around purple football shirts. So it must be a thing, which I'm sure we can definitely get behind. I'm going to take us down now to the south of Spain, down to Andalusia. It is the city of two big football teams, and I believe you might be covering one of the other one later. But so I'm going to go with Sevilla. And so, Sevilla, again, maybe similar to Real Madrid, they don't often play with, the home shirt. It's got a defined set of rules, which is make it white, put a Sevilla badge on it. We're pretty much there. And I was looking back against some of the their kits with collars, and there have been many. I alluded to the one that had Marbella on it before. That had a really nice sort of like deep red collar with white piping on it, which was really, really interesting. And I thought that'd be a great one, but it felt too simple. It felt like you'd be maybe making it a bit easy because there's nothing really else to talk about with that shirt. And then a couple of years after that Umbro shirt, Umbro kind of went through that, I want to say a bit of a revolution. So I'm going to park your mind to World Cup 98, when England had that kit where they had the big badge in the centre. It was kind of like a new texture compared to what had been available in 96 and the years before. Big, bright collar as well. And they found that as a bit of a working formula, did Umbro, and went, well, actually, we're going to make this available for everyone. We spoke about Eurocelta's Umbro kit earlier as well. And Sevilla had a long-standing relationship with Umbro. And as I said before, they kept it within the rules of play that Sevilla liked. In 1998 to 2000, though, they went ever so slightly different, and they broke sort of like the mold of what a Sevilla kit should look like. Granted, it was still all white, but there was just a bit more going on. So now they had these cuffs on the edge, which are these, really, tight cuffs, as we were talking about before. Red with that yellow, with that white piping. The Umbro badge going up the sleeve as well, which was kind of like a strap either side. And I think I might have a bit of a thing for these shoulder to arm logos going down the side. Super cable across the middle as well. So again, Sevilla had sponsors before, but they weren't really anything too commercial. But the collar for me on this shirt is just sensational because it's this really nice red collar that goes round with a white stripe sort of clean through the middle of it. But then you come down to the buttons and you've got this really one big white I don't know, is it a lapel or is it, I don't really know what the word is to describe it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's got one big white one and one big red one and then two buttons. And I just think, like you say, that is, it's probably something very, very simple and very easy, but it just looks class. And then you've got like the Umbro logos sort of like embossed into the lining. I just think really, really beautiful kit. Probably not one that Sevilla fans will be very, very fond of because they were relegated in this shirt. So some bad memories attached to it. But from the outside looking in, I thought that's a pretty cool kit.
Yeah, and if I'm right in thinking, the away kit was the inverted version, so the colours were the other way around, except the collar was black, and it looks kind of like a, dare I say, Manchester United shirt actually.
It did.
But so I'm not going to give any credit for the away shirt, but the home shirt, the white one, very, very nicely done, I think. And you're right in there. I'm not sure Sevilla fans will perhaps remember it too fondly for the design and obviously how the season played out. But I think it's there's something cool about it, and the over the shoulders, the Sevilla logo there. I would quite like to see that a bit more, but I'm one of these people as well who's of the opinion that Umbro are actually quite an underrated manufacturer and designer. And coincidentally, their office used to be not far from where I currently work in the centre of Manchester as well. In fact, it's in a building. It's about 2 streets away from where classic football shirts are now currently based. So.
Yeah. Oh well, and Umbro are again. Maybe in a similar vein to a lot of these 90s styles, like, I not that I'm down with the kids or anything like that, but I hear that they're wearing Feeler again. I hear that the Asics is back and Umbro is very much in that surge. So when I've been walking around with wearing my Umbro jacket for these last 10 years, thinking I look really retro and hip. I was actually just ahead of the curve on this one, but they've got some beautiful kits out there at the moment. I know the ones that stand out for me: Cambridge United, Carlisle United recently as well released theirs. Really stunning work. I'd point you as well. Obviously, we noted the away kit for Sevilla this season being a bit like a Man United kit. Again, equally with a stunning collar. They also had a brilliant third shirt this season, and again, this is when third shirts weren't really a thing. Only the chosen few decided that they were, had the bollocks, right, basically, to say, we're going to charge you for a third shirt we're going to wear twice all season. But they had a really beautiful, like, navy third shirt with, again, a white collar and red and white piping down the sleeves. And it was it neat to the middle. And I want to say it looks like a zip, but it's not a zip. It's kind of like where it's just hemmed in. And just going up to the neck there. But again, just a really beautiful selection of shirts that are on the screen in front of me. It's just a shame that the players wearing them weren't as good. You've got to take the rough with the smooth, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, so with that then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that my next shirt that I picked is also from the city of Seville, but as you alluded to before, it's actually a Real Betis shirt from 1995-1996. It is a Kappa shirt, and as we all know, Kappa tend to be pretty good, particularly during the period of the 90s to the early 2000s. I think Kappa were exceptional. So this is, it's got the big collar on it. It's got a big white box with huge, written in quite a bold, but almost generic sort of font, the word Kelia as the sponsor, which I believe was a Spanish snack brand. It's not one that I'm particularly familiar with, but then again, I don't live in Spain, so I don't know if they're still about or if they're any good. Yeah, I just think it's a really, really tidy kit that, thinking of the Kappa shirts from the time, so it's got the over the shoulder sort of accent of Kappa, but it's got a nice clean, and it's almost like precision effort that's gone to designing the stripes. You've got your standard sort of relatively thick ones down the body and underarms, but the bit over the shoulders, there's a bit of thin piping between the accent and the main stripes. I just think it's a really cool kit. As it stands, it wasn't the most memorable of seasons. I think they finished 4th in La Liga, which they did. That means they qualified for the UEFA Cup. And if I'm right in thinking, they lost in the Copa del Rey to Barcelona in extra time. But I can't remember if that's the semi-final or final. In fact, it was the final, actually. And I'd probably be right in thinking, as that was the final, they finished 4th qualifying. It's probably one of Betis' better seasons post the 1980s for a long while. Which, again, perhaps we could put that down to the quality of the shirt and the beautiful collar that it's got on it. I think Betis are probably a club who, actually, come to think about it, have got a good track record of having collars on their shirts as well, similar to Atleti. They tend to be one of the ones that favour it. Maybe it's to keep the neck well protected in the heat of Seville.
I think as well for me, Real Betis are a club which I'd be hard pressed to find a shirt where they actually did a bad job. And it's not because, like I say, it's too complicated for them to they're working with green and white, which is always a classic combination. But it's something where they just always seem to do a brilliant job. Even this season, with Hummel, and we were talking before about how Hummel are kind of like maybe hitting, missing the mark a little bit. In terms of how they've designed things for this season after, a good couple of years at being maybe at the pinnacle of kit manufacturing. But this season, they've still got the Betis kit absolutely spot on, and they look great whilst doing it.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it was Hummel as well. Last season's Las Palmas shirt, the yellow one, I had a real retro vibe to it, and I thought that was stunning. And to the point about Betis tend to have more better shirts than they do bad, considering it's a design that you can't alter too much. I'd say look at the two Milan clubs, and I'd say they tend to experiment a little bit more than perhaps what Betis do with their kit. But I think that both Milan clubs have had some right stinkers over the years, to be truthful. Whereas with Betis, I think that you're pretty consistent. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah, again, never really break the mold, so say, did he for that one? So and again, you can tell a lot from what kits from that era were absolutely brilliant and classic in terms of how, whether we like it or not, are now being remanufactured on mass, whether it's by the the actual brand itself or by those pesky people in the foreign markets that like to manufacture shirts for the cheap price. But again, football shirts are so expensive, you know why people go that way. But again, just anything with Real Betis on, I just think you could slap Real Betis on a 1992 Vauxhall Nova and you'd be able to sell it within a couple of days. It's just a brilliant way that they set up everything. Everything they touch just turns to gold, and kits are by and large their biggest part of doing that as well. So much props to Real Betis for that kit. And I think we've been quite 90s centric so far as well, if I'm being perfectly honest. But we've all picked kits from that era. So I'm maybe going to go a little bit more modern and bring out our first Nike kit. I don't think we've done a Nike kit, just mentioned it so far. And of course, I'll have to mention this one because, as we know, I am a Malaga fan. This Malaga shirt with with just a simple white collar on it. You've got those beautiful, blue and white stripes. UNESCO across the middle. This is a season as well where they had all the stars wearing this kit. So, you've got your Iscos, you've got your Santi Cazorlas, you've got your, most importantly, Jeremy Toulalan. And, as we know with French people, they look cool wearing anything, but especially when they're wearing a collar. But this kit for this season is just iconic for what Malaga did on the pitch. It's very much the height of everything they've ever achieved. But it was so different from what we'd seen from a Malaga shirt for about, I want to say 20 years. So the last time that they'd had collars on shirts was back in the 90s with Kelme. And just before that, it was, I think they're called Razun. So collars used to be a big part of the Malaga shirt identity. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared and went and just never came back again until this shirt. And I'm going to maybe step out and be quite bold and say they've not had a collar since either. So it's iconic for that, the way it looks and obviously everything achieved. But the fact that it became quite special in that way, that they never really deviated from the collarless moving forward, quite interesting. But yeah, and at this point as well, I think this is where Nike were really, for want of a better term, to lend a term from what the kids would say, cooking with their kits as well, because they'd had their era of like Total 90, and then they were moving on to these more bespoke, beautiful kits that they were doing, and they were quite good kits back then. Not compared to like the templates that we get now, and or if you are a class as an elite club, you won't be given a template. You'll have a special design, which is the same design as somebody else but in a different color. This was when Nike were good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's a stunning kit. It's I think there's some. I think it's probably its simplicity at what also makes it so tasteful. I think that it's clean, isn't it? It's not too busy as a design. It's just nice and bold colours and. Pardon?
It's elegant, isn't it? I think that's probably the way to describe it.
Yeah. No, great kit. And like you say, I mean, obviously, it's only a few weeks ago we were talking about that particular era for the club as well. And I think the cover image for that episode it's Harkeen and is it Santi Cazorla as well? Certainly Isco as well, celebrating, and they've got that kit on, and it gives a good memories, doesn't it, as well? So bonus, and I think it's pretty cool to have UNESCO on the front of your shirt, just like I think the era that Barcelona had UNICEF as their emblazoned across the front of their shirts. I think that was really cool. Although I actually haven't picked any of those Barcelona shirts. I don't think any of them had a collar, to be fair. So that's probably why.
No, I don't think so either. But it was cool, and I've got this shirt as well, and it is a pride of place piece, and I've got it as well in long sleeve, which again I thought was quite cool because I was like, can't be too many of them knocking around, especially with it being a Costa del Sol club. So that's a really beautiful shirt, and obviously the memories that it incites, for me from a personal perspective, it was always going to make the top 5. More importantly, so. Yes, you've maybe alluded to one of your future shirts there, Paul. I don't know if it's up next or whether you save it to last. Where are you going to take us to next?
Do you know what? We'll go with it next, because as well, the other shirt that I've got picked is the year after. So this one is from 1999-2000, and my final shirt is from 2000 to 2001. And there's a little bit of crossover in this sense. So I'll just tell you now, it's a Barcelona home shirt, and it's the iconic one that's in 2 halves. The red down one side, blue down the other, rather than stripes. It's kind of like a minimalist design, but the collar is absolutely huge. I think it's probably the biggest collar I've seen on any kind of football shirt. You can probably picture it now. It's the one that you'll have seen Rivaldo, Pep Guardiola, Kluivert, Frank de Boer, and a young Xavi as well. It was also Figo's last season at Barcelona before he moved over to Real Madrid and came back the following season, had a pig's head thrown at him whilst he was taking a corner on the pitch. That we have to mention every time we get the opportunity. Yeah.
We need a klaxon.
Like
a pig noise or something like that.
Like I say, when there's a chance to get that shoehorned in, we will take it. So it's an iconic shirt. It's one I think is still very popular, certainly with football shirt collectors, but also I think young Barcelona fans have been trying to source it because I think there's been a few celebrities that have wore it and took a couple of pictures on Instagram. So now other people want to have it so they can take pictures for Instagram, although other social media networks are available.
I liked it a few years ago when Hector Bellerin was on loan at Barcelona, if I remember right. I can't remember if he signed from actually.
No,
he was in Barcelona.
Yeah.
But briefly. He was there in that shirt as I think either on his way to sign from or just after he signed from. And he was pictured wearing that Barcelona shirt, pair of denim flared denim jeans as well, like cowboy boots, obviously long hair and a pencil mustache like he's got. And the thing is that I'll say it is. I'm a 5-year-old man, look nothing like Hector Bellerin. Wish I could be that fashionable, but he looked cool doing it. And I think that's the thing with this shirt is that it does move away from that iconic sort of like stripe feel for Barcelona, but it goes back to that original Barcelona kit. That was the big hark back for it.
Yeah.
The detailing with the years either side of the knee as well was just, really, really, really cool. But that collar, Jesus Christ, like Harry Hill-esque. Like, we were talking about, how football kits at that time were fashionable, yes, but they also meant to be functional. Imagine like a rapid Thierry Henry having to wear that shirt. Like Kluivert must have been at least 10 mile per hour slower wearing that with resistance he was catching underneath that.
I mean, look, put it this way, that this is the season where Barcelona lost in the semi-finals of the Champions League to Valencia. Louis van Gaal left at the end of the season, and they finished second in La Liga behind the team that I'm not going to mention yet, but whose shirt I've picked. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe this is where one of those rare occasions where the collar lets you down. They went full collar, and it's
collars.
I'm not carrying on. Yeah, the Icarus of collars.
Because they maybe not to jump the gun. I don't know if this is the one you're going to talk about next, but they had the gold shirt as well. That was that the same season, or was that a couple of seasons after?
Away, I think that was the away strip for it, which was also massive. But this is also, if I'm remembering this correctly as well, this is the time where I think Manchester United had a similar sort of kit arrangement where they had a shirt that was reversed. The away shirt was reversible, so one side was silver and the other side was gold.
Oh, yeah. It
was the same manufacturer, Nike. I think it's the same season, yeah. So gold was in at that time. And this was also, if you think about it, because, you know, we definitely spoke about it before. I think it was in the Ronaldinho episode where we talked about like commercialization of this era when it came to football, and marketing and boots were a big thing. So this is where a lot of like you first started to see Nike do their branding of their shirt, that they would have like boots that would kind of match the branding of the shirt. Gloves, like, you know, it wasn't Total 90, it was pre-Total 90, which I can't remember. They did have another name for it, for like the range back then in the early 2000s. Adidas had just started to do like the Predator sort of era. Nike had not done the Total 90 stuff. We're probably about 5 years pre-Total 90, but it was whatever they were going on at the time. It was all linked together. And you'd get footballs with the same style of Nike branding on. It was
one of two things. It was either the Nike Tiempo, or they had the T90 before they brought out the Total 90. Like they added the Total to the 90.
Yeah.
That. There was another one with Ronaldo was the face of it, but I can't quite remember what.
I seem to remember it was like linked in with like the Brazil team that we talked about.
I want to say
Ronaldo sort of was the face of the campaign, and wasn't TN, was it? No, that was
Phantoms. Phantoms, I think they were.
Yeah, was it Phantoms? Yeah.
Which I think they've now. I think they're back again, if I remember rightly. But Total 90s are also back now, and I think I saw a pair advertised the other day on a popular shoe store, and they just changed the sole out of them from being an AstroTurf trainer to like just a normal tennis shoe trainer. And how much do you think they were selling them for, Paul? Let's have some fun here.
It won't have been a reasonable price, so I'm going to say north of £100.
Mm-hmm. £135.
135 or 30, 130. Sorry.
For a pair of white and gold Total 90s that you cannot use on AstroTurf, not functional.
No.
Yeah.
Game's gone.
No, an incredible era, and I think you're right. You know, it's very, very interesting. You know how Nike were really starting to pick up a room, because again they weren't really well known in Europe in the 90s. To be fair, this is an area that maybe people probably forget about. That I think the first club that Nike sponsored ever in Europe was Sunderland, if I want to say, sort of like in the early 90s, but they weren't as well known across the board. And obviously when they eventually ended up with Barcelona, that was kind of like when it really all did start to kick off for them as a European brand. And then Manchester United, Arsenal, etc. So yeah, quite interesting, and did break the dominance of Adidas that way too. So yeah, very, very interesting, which leads me quite nicely to my next shirt, which is an Adidas shirt. So again, we've now hit, you know, what we would refer to as the big two, but I'm not going to go for a Real Madrid shirt for this one. I'm not going to go with a Depor shirt as well, which I find, you know, synonymous with Adidas. I'm going to go for Real Zaragoza's 1998 to 1999 shirt, which again was quite simple in terms of, you know, all white, down the front. It's got the Real Zaragoza logo sort of like embossed all over it as well with a bit of piping. Those iconic, Adidas stripes going down the sleeves in the Real Zaragoza blue. Oddly long sleeves as well. So again, we were talking about 1990s fashion. These sleeves seem like 3/4 sleeves. Again, you look at some of the pictures on like a Chucho Solana, and you can just see the top of his wrist when he's running around. It's like he was wearing his dad's football shirt. And again, the collar on this is also really beautiful because it's got sort of like the traditional colors of Real Zaragoza meets in the middle, and then it's got like a flower, I want to say it is, or it's some kind of like logo inside there, which is really, really cool. But the bit that always gets me on this, and what I love about Spanish football from time to time, and again, maybe to bring it back to modern times, Preston North End have just announced that they've got Spud Bros as their kit sponsor for this season, which I think's mind-boggling, yet shows where we are as a nation at the same time. Spanish football just never really seemed to be bothered about who they put on the front of the shirts. Like you say, they could be the capital city of Madrid's team, yet they'll stick Marbella on the front of there. A couple of the shirts a few years ago, obviously I host a podcast called El Pozo, but El Pozo is also a brand of jamón ibérico in Spain. So again, they'll just have a jamón ibérico sponsor on there. This season, they had Picolin, which was Real Zaragoza's sponsor. And again, as a quiz question, what do you think Picolin makes or sells?
I don't know. Pickles?
You'd like to think, wouldn't you? No, they are Zaragoza's premier mattress manufacturer.
Obviously.
So, obviously.
With a name like that, obviously.
But like I say, this was really a brilliant kit. It wasn't again and too much to write about on the pitch for Real Zaragoza. They had some really iconic players who played in this. As I've mentioned, Chucho and Gustavo Lopez, etc. But what I really liked about this as well is that it was when Adidas had. They were missing this part of it. They were missing the 3 stripes, and it just said Adidas across the top of it. And, I really like the Spain shirts of this time that had that as well. And it's just a really clean, nice, class shirt. And, with Real Zaragoza as well, it's a win for me.
I think it's one of those, like, we've spoke about it before. It's got the as you mentioned, the pattern in the thread of the it's like a watermark feature, isn't it? Of the crest. And I would I would wager if Zaragoza, I don't know who currently makes their shirts, but if they basically took that design and re-released it now with just like the modern sponsor and that on it, that it would fly off the shelves. I think it's it's simplicity again in the design. I think it's an excellent choice. When you sent me the picture saying, "Oh, I'm going to go with this one," I thought, "Oh, that is a very nice shirt."
Well, you'll be pleased to hear that Adidas is still the sponsor of Real Zaragoza, but I don't think they've ever attempted to remanufacture or remake this shirt, which is such a shame because it's such a popular thing to do at the moment with football clubs as well, isn't it? To have a special shirt that recreates, an icon basically. And I don't think they've managed to do this yet for Real Zaragoza. So if you're listening, Jorge Mas, who I think is the owner, build this and they will come. Like you do with Nueva La Romareda, build it and they will come.
Yeah, just release that, a modern version of that, and ka-ching. So I'll move on to my final pick, which is actually also an Adidas kit. And I mentioned before that the team, the season of the Barcelona shirt that I've just talked about, this team finished ahead of them and won La Liga. This team would then celebrate being champions with what I think is a pretty beautiful football shirt. But we're then going to finish second. So it's Deportivo La Coruña's home shirt from 2000 to 2001. The sponsor, Dreamcast.
Dreamcast.
Yeah,
Hey.
now, I never had a Dreamcast. I had a Sega Mega Drive and a PlayStation, but I never had a Dreamcast. So I have no idea, like, you know, how successful Dreamcast were. I remember them being around, but like they only released like one iteration of the console, and then that was it, never to be seen again. And I didn't know anybody that had one, so you know. But they sponsored Depot and a couple of other clubs. They sponsored the Scottish team, and did they sponsor Arsenal as well for a bit?
Arsenal as well, yeah. I was going to say that's the one I remember.
Yeah, but this onto the shirt, the important bit. So it's got a similar collar actually to the Zaragoza shirt that you just mentioned. As in it's dark blue with the 3 stripes in white that go around the neck. And it is a distinct sort of white with 3 of the what I don't even know what type of blue it is. It's not a royal blue. It's too light to be that. But it's that fair depot blue, and it's just 3 thick stripes across the body. The sleeves are white with the thin Adidas blue stripes going on there. Tiny little bit of a yellowy gold accent on them. Adidas logo in gold. And it's just a really cool kit. Simple design, but effective. Wore it in the Champions League as well. They wore it in the Champions League. And yeah, it's one that, again, if a kit came out as bold and elegant as that today, I'm sure fans would snap it up.
Yeah, it was the Adidas logo in like a yellow thread as well, if I remember rightly.
Yellowy gold, yeah.
Yes. So again, felt like a bit of a deviation from the normal as well. Sort of like, you know, you are seeing a bit more, I don't know, maybe personal bespoke touches on football shirts than you would have seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is when it was Roy Mackay, Mauro Silva, Diego Tristan as well was there. Champions League quarterfinals, wasn't it? Beat Juventus, second in La Liga to Real Madrid. It was going into that season. You know, it was as high as you could feel as a Depot fan. And you got to kick off your campaign as reigning champions with an absolute stunner of a football shirt.
Yeah, and they did have a brilliant relationship with Adidas as well. Through looking back to they had the Umbro in the mid-90s when Rivaldo first signed, but when they put Rivaldo in that Adidas shirt with the button up, like it wasn't a collar, but it was a collar. Yeah. It's just they just seem to get those shirts right. And like I've got an away one down here which was in the in the really dark like royal green, and that was class as well. And I think again you look back at some of these classic Adidas kits, they're 10 times better back then than they are now for me. Everything's just template, and as I mentioned before, if you're an elite partner you can have maybe something special. Just go back to doing it the way you did it back then. It was so much better. Which is absolutely brilliant. But to end on then with my last choice, to make it a hat trick of Adidas shirts in a row now, I'm actually going to go with the one I'm wearing. And obviously a bit of a slight deviation because this isn't a club shirt, this is the national team's shirt. And I've got a really nice collection of Spain national team shirts throughout the 90s, and this partnership that they've had with Adidas from, I think they left Le Coq Sportif at the end of 1989, and they've constantly been with Adidas ever since, even till now. And they just always seem to get it right with Spain shirts, do Adidas. It's just always like really clean, really bright, really vibrant, always has a bit of a knock back to some kind of history that they've got. This one that I'm wearing, though, is so out of that usual normality for Spain. And I don't know if this is 100% correct, and I may just be, regurgitating rumor here, but I'm fairly certain that Spain never wore this shirt. I can't find a single photo of the Spanish national side wearing this kit ever. Now, I want to say the reason why they made it is because they had to have a third shirt at the 1998 World Cup. And obviously Spain had their red and gold and navy home shirt. They had a white and navy away shirt. And then they had this for that time and then into 1999 as away shirt. Can't find a single picture, Paul, of them wearing it. It's weird. It's like it's been erased from history.
Well, you know what? I mean, I do feel like I've seen that shirt before, but I think I've seen you wearing that shirt before. Rather than me having seen Spain, wear it. So I'd be interested. You might be right there. If anybody has any photos of Spain playing in that kit that Nick's wearing, he's just described there, do tag us in them, send them in to us, just to either prove Nick wrong that he is just, that he's making it up, or prove him right. Let us know, because I want to know the answer now. Are you correct or not?
Generally, I've tried typing everything into whatever search engine it might be. AI said, show me Spain wearing the 1998-99 third shirt in a live match. Absolutely nothing. And it's such a shame as well, because I do really, really love it. This is one of my favorite football shirts. And again, for the benefit of the people that are maybe listening rather than watching, it's got sort of like a big dark navy panel going through the middle, either side of like a more turquoisey blue, the gold piping from underneath the arms up into the neck. The collar for me on this absolutely does it. It's like a really nice navy collar with red and yellow, obviously Spain flag colours going around the back, and then just these stripes going down the side. Paul, it was that time where you had the Adidas stripes, but they were slightly bobbly, slightly aerated to. I don't know for what benefit they would have done that for, but they did. It's just a really clean kit, and I absolutely love it. And I won't tell you how much I paid for this one, because it'll. My wife is in earshot, but let's just say Ruby had one less Christmas present that year. So, but yeah, no, I just think it's absolutely brilliant, and it's definitely up there for me as one of the best kits with collars ever made that never got worn, apparently.
There we go.
Exactly. What we will make sure we do as well is, we'll knock up some cool graphic to demonstrate mine and Paul's selections. As I kind of like preempted on the beginning of the podcast, I'm sure a lot of people are going to come back and tell us we were absolutely wrong, and how dare we forget such and such a shirt from such and such a season. But we want to encourage the conversation. What is your favourite Spanish football shirt with a collar on it? And I'm sure we'll be inundated with suggestions, won't we, Paul?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Let's have the conversation. And, I quite like getting messages or being, reading the comments where it's all, I disagree with you, or I agree with you, or whatever. I think it's we're here to just talk about, happy times in the world of Spanish football. It's nice to have a podcast that is nostalgic, and we can talk about days when football seemed a bit more straightforward, and kits always trigger happy memories, I think, unless of course it's one that, like, I don't know, that grey kit that United wore against Southampton, or the electric blue Kappa shirt that Manchester City got relegated to the third tier in. With the exception of those sort of moments, kits generally hit the happy part of your memories, don't they?
They do, yeah. And I'll mention a Blackpool kit of when Blackpool played in the Premier League. I wish we had a different kit, because we've just got Cabrini as the kit manufacturer, Wonga as the sponsor. I just go, what waste of our time. But yeah, that's why I focus so much on Spanish football kits, because they're much nicer. But yeah, this has been another brilliant episode, Paul. So thank you once again for joining me to look back at some much more favourable times of Spanish football, and in particularly kits, which I always appreciate talking about. I'll say thank you to you guys at home once again for listening, and do send us your thoughts on social media. Do go give us a follow at elpartido.es, and you can able to chat to us there and all sorts of stuff. And yes, we'll see you again next week, won't we, Paul?
We will. It's always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one already.
No worries. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll catch you later. Hasta luego.